Shalom, 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 shalom. Shalom, 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 shalom. 1 second, family. Seleucid. Yeah, I'm gonna call you back, all right? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna call you back, yeah? Just about to start a session. All right, you here later? Yeah, all right, I'll see. What, you coming now? You want dinner or you? Okay. Okay, all right. I'll see you later. Yeah, we'll catch up later then. All right, see you later. Yeah. So lucky. So lucky for me. That was my boy. He was just checking in. Anyway, first, I want to give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash, and double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who are leading this word in truth and in spirit and in sincerity. And salutations to all of the righteous Hebrew Israelite brothers out there that are teaching this word in the name of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, which is the name of the Father, the Most High, Yahweh, Bahasham, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that's the Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This is us giving praise and glory to the Father and our Savior, Yahweh Shai, in the Hebrew. For those of you that don't know, Shalom, 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 to the hopeful elect of the house of Israel. For those of you that are being edified by this truth that we teach according to biblical scripture, not according to our feelings or what we want it to be or what we want to will it to be, according to the scriptures. Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. As you can see today, as I promised you, we're going to go through Daniel's chapter 11. Daniel's chapter 11. Now, we keep on hearing about all of these. You get these Christian pastors and Christian preachers that keep on talking about Daniel 11 as if it's a prophecy that's still to come. Now, I've said this many times before, that the book of Daniel's chapter 11 has been fulfilled, right? Daniel's chapter 11 from verse 1. Let's be clear about this. Daniel's chapter 11 from verse 1 all the way down to verse 45 has been fulfilled. Daniel's chapter 11 has been. Daniel's chapter 11 is about the Syrian Wars, which we're going to go through today. It's predominantly about the Syrian Wars, the 3rd century BC, the 5 conflicts that you see on the screen, fought between the Hellenist states, chiefly the Seleucid kingdom and the Ptolemaic Egypt kingdom, right? And in a lesser way, Macedonians, because they came out of Macedonia, right? The Ptolemies, right? These were the descendants of Alexander the Great's generals, right? Seleucid, who took control of Syria, Ptolemy, who took control of Egypt after Alexander the Great died, right? His empire was split between his 4 generals. So it says here, the complex and devious diplomacy that surrounded the wars was characteristic of the Hellenistic monarchies. The main issue in dispute between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies was control of southern Syria. So where was southern Syria? Southern Syria backed onto Israel, right? Onto northern Israel, right? So the main dispute was over. Let's just quickly bring it up. So it shows up on the image on the map. This is what the main dispute was over. All right, let's see if we can get an image of it on the map properly. So that's the Seleucid Empire. Down here would be the Ptolemies. So there's a better map. Let me see. Seleucid Empire and Ptolemy. Empire. Let's see if we can get a map with both of them, shine it on it so we can see. That one. So the green is the Seleucid, the orange is the Ptolemaic. Can you see? The Ptolemaic kingdom is the orange, and the green is Seleucid. So the wars were mainly to do with over what we call southern Syria. So this would be southern Syria, right? Israel is trapped in the middle of these two. So this would be Israel here, trapped in the middle of these two empires. So this is what the wars was mainly over, just so you understand. Let's have a picture here. There you go. Can you see it? The Seleucid Empire, the Ptolemaic Empire. And this is what the 5 wars are. So this is what Daniel 11 is all about, right? When I say to your pastor and your priest don't have a clue, they don't have a clue about Daniel 11. So without further ado, we're going to go into the book of Daniel, chapter 11, and we're going to break down Daniel chapter 11 all the way through to that from verse 1 to 45. Okay? So let's get this going. So when we talk about, where was we? I brought some tabs up here. So when it says the main issue in a dispute between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies was control of southern Syria in the first war, 274 to 271, Ptolemy II, right, wrestled Phoenicia on the northern Syria coast, right, most of Anatolia and the Cyclades Islands from the Seleucids. In the second war, the Seleucid king Antiochus II, aided by Antigonus, Gonastus of Macedonia, which was the other one of Alexander's general, initiated a largely successful campaign to regain Phoenicia and Anatolia. All right. So that would be these islands there. Phoenicia would be along here somewhere. All right. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. All right. We're going to go through Daniel chapter 11. Because I say again, the churches don't have a clue about the Bible, about Bible prophecy. All they know is John 3:16. Jesus loves, the Most High gave his only begotten Son, that when anyone believes in him, anyone in the world that believes in him can receive salvation. That's the only thing they understand. That's the only thing that they preach but don't even understand. It's John 3:16. So let's do this. Let's do this. Let's give you a full screen here. We're going to give you a full screen, family. We're going to give you a full screen and we're going to go straight into the scriptures. Daniel's, where are you, brother Daniel? I always say Daniel. I know I say Daniel's in plural for Daniel chapter 11. Right, so let's go there. Let's start there from the very top. So it says, Daniel chapter 11, we'll start at the very top here, right? It says, also, I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. It says, and now will I show thee the truth. This is one time. It says, and now will I show thee the truth, right? Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than them all. And by his strength and through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Gracia. All right? So, the 3 kings, who are the 3 kings that we're speaking of here? Cyrus the Great, right, would be the first one. He's the one that freed us from captivity. Cyrus the Great, also known as Cambyses II. All right? Then you got the second king would be, his name is they call him Bardia, also known as Smerdis. All right. See, if I bring up everything I want to show you, but I can quickly show you, right? Second king is Bardia. So you got here, the first king was Cyrus the Great. Everyone knows Cyrus the Great, right? This is who's talking about chapter 2. Cyrus the Great is the first king, all right? Of Persia, all right? The second one is, go away. The second one is, and you can look this all this up in your own time, Bardia. Is it Bardia? I think it's pronounced Bardia. Yeah. It's in here, of Persia, also known as Smerdis. He died around 522 BC. All right. The third king is Darius. Darius the Great. That's the third king, Darius the Great. He reigned from 522 BC. So he reigned after his predecessor was Bardia, also known as Tanya Oxyrus. I can't pronounce that. But he's also known as Smerdis, right? And then the fourth king is, see it here? Xerxes the First, also known as Artaxerxes. So, go back to Daniel 11. So when it says here, and now will I show thee the truth, behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings. Those 3 kings, the first one is Cyrus the Great. The second one is Bardia, also known as Smerdis. The third one is Darius the Great. Those are the 3 kings, the first 3. And the fourth shall be far richer than them all. Do you remember the movie 300? The fourth is Artaxerxes. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of the Grecia. Remember 300, the movie 300? That's what that was about. That was Artaxerxes that stirred up all against the Grecians. All right? That's what that movie was based on. So that's who the fourth king is. The fourth king is Artaxerxes, who's going to be richer than them all. All right? As you can see here, Xerxes the First is notable in his Western history for his invasion of Greece in 480 BC. His forces temporarily overrun mainland Greece north of Isthmus Corona until losses at Salamis and Plataea. So when scripture says here in the prophecy, and he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia, that is Xerxes the First, all right? So there's a lot to go through, so I don't want to spend too long on each verse, right? But we're going to go through it. So it says here, and a mighty king shall stand up, and they shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. All right? So that mighty king that's going to stand up is who? That's going to be Alexander the Great. This is the mighty king that comes up against the Persian and the Greeks, all right? So we'll quickly get another tab, all right? That mighty king is, I'm only doing this for edification, right? Alexander the Great, all right? This is that mighty king in verse 3 that it's referring to. Alexander the Great is the great king. Come on. Alexander of Macedonia, commonly known as Alexander the Great, was the king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia, because he's from Macedonia, Eastern Europe, a member of the Argean dynasty, and he was born in Pella, a city in Greece, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, he's the one that comes up in 3. So you can see here, in 334 BC, he invaded the Achaemenid Empire, the Persian Empire, and began a series of campaigns that lasted 10 years, right? So he's the one. Following his conquest of Asia Minor, Alexander broke the power of Persia in a series of decisive battles, including those at Isis and Gaugamela. He subsequently overthrew King Darius III and conquered the Achaemenid Empire in its entirety. So, verse 3 is referring to Alexander the Great. This is the mighty king. This is the Grecian king, all right? Let's go to the next verse. Then it says, and when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided towards the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, because all of his children were killed by his 4 generals. When it says his kingdom shall be divided between the 4 winds of heaven, Those are the 4 generals, right? Nor according to his dominion, which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. So Alexander's kingdom was divided between his 4 generals. Let's see if it quickly goes to his death here, and it'll show you. Come on. After his death. Whoops. Right. Let's see if it just shows the names here. Alexander's the Great's death. After his death. So let's see if it shows the 4 generals here. Romance after his death. Antiquity. So it's got here Ptolemy. It shows you Ptolemy. I'm actually showing you here. Crestus. The division of the empire. Let's have a look. Greece. Let's see if it shows me here. Okay, look at that. Brilliant. Okay. It says dissension and rivalry soon afflicted the Macedonians, right? However, the Strapates handed out by Perdiccas at the partition of Babylon became power bases each general used to bid for power. After the assassination of Perdiccas in 321 BC, Macedonia's unity collapsed and 40 years of war between the successors, right, ensued, right, before the Hellenistic world settled into 4 stable power blocks. The Ptolemaic Egypt, which we're going to go into, which is the king of the south, all right, in Daniel chapter 11. The Seleucid Macedonia, which is the king of the north, that's the 2nd general, and Asia and Antilia. Antigona was got hold of Macedonia, and the other one is Lacemaeus. I've got his name here. The 4th one is Lacemaeus. But as you can see, his Hellenistic world of Alexandria, the successors, Diadochi, were the rival general families and the friends of Alexander the Great, right? And it settled and ensued before the Hellenistic world settled into 4 stable blocks. So his empire was split between his 4 generals. So those are the 4. When it says here, it was divided towards the 4 winds of heaven. Those are Alexander the Great's 4 generals. And not to his posterity, not to his kids, because they killed his kids, right? Nor according to his own dominion, which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked. Right, let's go to the next verse. Don't want to spend too long on each verse because we could be here all day. Verse 5, and the king of the south shall be strong, one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. So, the divisions of Alexander's empire, the descendants of Ptolemy I, which is the king of the south, right, in Egypt. And when it says here, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. All right. So you got the king of the south, which is the Ptolemies, all right, the descendants of Ptolemy I. And then you've got the king of the north, which is the Seleucid Empire, the descendants of the Seleucid Empire. So their conflicts are an impact on Israel, right? Because remember, Israel, where did it go? Sorry. Israel sits in between, Israel's here. Sits in between the conflict between the king of the south, the Ptolemy, the king of the north, the Seleucid. All right? So their conflicts are going to be an impact on Israel located directly between them. The king of the north, Seleucids, becomes stronger than Ptolemy, right? So when it says here, and he shall be strong above him, right? And have dominion, right? So he becomes stronger than the king of the south, the king of the north does, from the Seleucid Empire. So it says it, and in the end of years they shall join themselves together. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up. And they that brought her, and he that beget her, and he that strengthened her in these times. All right. So what is this talking about? This is talking about Ptolemy's daughter. Her name is Bernice, right? Who was married to Antiochus, his son, right? His name is Theos, Antiochus Theos. He's the third king of Syria. And I just brought this up here so you could see, all right? Just so you know. So this is her, Bernice. So she's the daughter of Ptolemy II of Philadelphus, right? They call him Philadelphus, right? And the daughter of Ariso I, that's her mum, of Egypt. She now marries to the Seleucid ruler, Antiochus II Theos, right? Supplanting his first wife, who is Leodos, because that was the first wife. So this is what this is talking about here. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together. Bernice, Ptolemy's daughter, marries Antiochus Theos, the king of the north. For the king's daughter of the south, Bernice, shall come to the king of the north, Antiochus Theos, to make an agreement. So this is what we're speaking of here. She was married to Seleucids. This is Bernice, the daughter of Ptolemy, the king of the south. She goes and marries Seleucid, the king of the north. That's the agreement. That's how they came together. So that's what that's speaking about, right? In that verse there. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up. And they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Why? Because Leodos, Antiochus II Theos' first wife, Leodosia here. Remember it says, she was supplanted, Bernice supplanted his first wife, Leodos, whose children she persuaded him to bar from succession to the throne in her favor of her own. But this is what happens. This is the twist in the story. It says here, Leodos, however, persuades Antiochus to come to Ephesus, right? Ephesus in Asia Minor, where he dies in 246 BC, perhaps a victim of her intrigues, which he was. The former queen, Leodosis, this is the former queen, Leodosis, right? Then ordered her partisans to do what? To kill Bernice and her children, who had taken refuge at Daphne near Antioch in Syria, all right? So this is what she did. So this is what this is talking about here. When it says, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, because she gets killed. Bernice gets killed. Leodos, Antiochus Theos' wife, who got supplanted by Bernice, Ptolemy's daughter, she now gets killed by Leodosa, kills Bernice. That's why it says, but she shall not retain the power of her arm, neither shall he stand, because he dies as well. He gets killed in all of this, what's going on as well. She somehow gets him killed. So let's see, Leodosa, however, persuades Antiochus to come to Ephesus, where he dies. He dies first, perhaps a victim of her intrigues. And then the former queen then orders the partisans to kill Bernice, to kill Ptolemy's daughter, to kill the king of the south's daughter and her children. Because what Bernice did took away her husband from her and took away her children from being succession to the throne. She removed her from the noble families and that. So when she convinced Antiochus to come to this place in Ephesus, she somehow killed him. And then she sent her people to kill Bernice, the wife, and her children. So there's no more bloodline from those two to succeed in the throne. So this is what this is talking about here. When it says, but she shall be given up. All right? She dies. She gets killed. And they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Right? Because she was only strengthened through her father. Right? Verse 6. Come on. So it says there, but out of the branch of her root shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north and shall deal against them and shall prevail. So the branch of her roots that will come with an army against the king of the north, that's the brother of Bernice. That's Ptolemy. His name is Ptolemy Enigatus. He's the successor of Ptolemy Philadelphus. He's his father's successor. He's going to come up against the king of the north, right? The new king of the north, which would be one of Laodicea's sons at the time, to invade it and sack Syria in revenge for the assassination of his sister Bernice. So I just brought this up here so you can see. It tells you here, sorry. It says here, Ptolemy III, Euergetus, Bernice's brother, launches a successful war. This is the third Syrian war against Laodicea and her son, Seleucids II. So this is what verse 7 is talking about. But out of a branch of her root shall one stand up in his estate. That's her brother. That's Ptolemy Enigatus. That's the son of Ptolemy Philadelphus, which shall come with an army. And that's what he did. He came with the army and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north and shall deal against them and shall prevail. So, prophecy fulfilled. This is what he did after his sister died. Ptolemy III, Bernice's brother, launched a successful war, the third Syrian war against Laodicea and her son, Seleucus II. Right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving, family. Verse 8. And shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods and their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So that's the king of the south. He carries captives gold from Syria, from the king of the north, Antiochus III, right, and brings it into Egypt, into where he's ruling. The king of the south is ruling, which is Egypt. This is what he does, right? So that's talking about Ptolemy. That's talking about this guy here, Ptolemy III Euergetus, Macedonia, the king of Egypt, son of Ptolemy II. He united Egypt and Syria and more successfully waged the third Syrian war against the Seleucid kingdom. So that's who this is talking about in this verse here, that carries out the gold and silvers and brings captives into Egypt. That's Ptolemy. That's Ptolemy. I know I'm pronouncing his surname wrong, right? Euergetus, all right? The son of Ptolemy Philadelphus. Verse 9, it says, so the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land, which is what we just read there, what he did, all right? So his sons, which is what we just basically went through, he returns back to Egypt with his riches, all right? Ptolemy. Verse 10, but his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up, even to his fortress. So when it says, but his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, that's Ptolemy Euergetus' son. His name is Ptolemy IV Philopator. So he's the son of Ptolemy III and Bernice II, because they give themselves the same name. It's not talking about the same Bernice. So his son, here it is. It says, almost nothing is known of Ptolemy's youth before 245. When, following a long engagement, he marries Bernice II. This is not his sister. They just call themselves these names. These are titles that they call themselves. The daughter of Magus, king of Cyrene, thereby reuniting Egypt and Syria. All right? It says, which has been divided since 258. Shortly after his accession and marriage, Ptolemy invades Colosseria to avenge the murder of his sister, which we just read. Right? So we just read all of that. So his sons is, let's see if it shows me his sons here. Because it's part of this third Syrian, after the third Syrian Wars. Where is it? Has he got his son here? His son is Philopator. Let's see if we can bring it up. His son is, this is his son, all right? Let's quickly bring it up here. Ptolemy. So let me Philippa. Period. Philippa. So Ptolemy the Fourth was the son of Ptolemy the Third, right? Who we just spoke about, Eugatus, and that's his mum, Bernice II, right? Eugata. So this is what this is talking about here. But his sons, Ptolemy's the third sons, Ptolemy the fourth, shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up, and even to his fortress. So that's what happens. His sons he's considered the fourth like pharaoh of the Ptolemaic Egypt from 221 BC to around 204 BC. So he's the one that does that, right? I just want to quickly bring it up. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. So the king of the south, Ptolemy Philopator, gathered his own armies and defeats the king of the north, Antiochus. Who is it? Which Antiochus does he fight against? This is the fourth Syrian War, the Seleucid Empire, Ptolemaic victory over the Battle of Raphinia, one of the largest battles of the Hellenistic age. In the final years of his rule, control over the southern portion of the country was lost to the rebel. I'm trying to think which king, which is it Antiochus, which one of the Antiochus he fought against. The fourth Syrian War. Is it Antiochus? Okay, it says Antiochus III. So this is who he fought against. Antiochus III, right, was a great Hellenistic king of the sixth rule of the Seleucid Empire. He ruled and reigned over Syria and large parts of the eastern region to the end of the 3rd century BC. So that's who Ptolemy Philopator went to war against in the fourth Syrian War, right? Antiochus III had assumed the Seleucid throne, and he instantly proved a dynamic leader determined to restore Seleucid power and to reverse the losses that the Seleucids had suffered in the 3rd Syrian War, right? So he fought in was it the 3rd or the 4th one? Ptolemy, okay, under Ptolemy the 3rd. Okay, so he fought in the 3rd Syrian War, Ptolemy the 3rd, all right? He fought in the 3rd Syrian War against Antiochus the 2nd, all right? So he fought in the 3rd Syrian War, Ptolemy the 3rd did, against, and he didn't fight in the 4th Syrian War. So he wasn't fighting against Antiochus the 3rd, all right? Because he would have fought in the 3rd Syrian War, which would have been, was it financing mainland Greek, Bernice II, was it Antiochus? Yeah, Antiochus II. The 3rd, Macedonian Wars, Ptolemy III. Okay, against Seleucids II. That's who he fought against. Ptolemy III fought against Leodos's son, right? The one that killed his sister Bernice, right? His father's sister, should I say. He fought against Seleucus II in the 3rd Syrian War, all right? So this is what this is talking about here. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north, and he shall set forth a great multitude, but multitude shall be given into his hand, all right? So, and when he has taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many, many tens of thousands, but he shall not be strengthened by it. So the king of the south, Ptolemy Philopator shall defeat Antiochus, but he shall not be strengthened by that defeat, just so you understand. So that's what that's talking about there, all right? For the king of the north, right, Antiochus Epiphanes, shall return and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. So that's talking about Antiochus III here. This is going to go into the fourth Syrian War. Antiochus III had assumed the Seleucid throne, and he instantly proved a dynamic leader determined to restore the Seleucid power and to reverse the losses that the Seleucids had suffered in the Third Syrian War. Right? In 221 BC, 1 year after his assertion, Antiochus III invaded the Ptolemaic territories in Syria. He was rebuffed by the Ptolemaic governor of the region, Theodos, and forced to turn east as a result of the revolt of Vistam of Media and Molan. Right? So in spring 2019, Antiochus III tried again, attacking and capturing the key ports, city, and hearth of the Seleucid dynasty, Seleucid period, which had been under Ptolemaic control since 246 BC. Bang. All praises. So this is what this is talking about now. The king of the north shall return and shall set forth multitude of great. Then the foreman shall certainly come after years with a great army with much riches. So that's what that's going into, all right? Just so we understand, all right? Oh man, this is not going to move this fast, but this will take forever. Verse 14 says, and in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of the people shall exalt themselves to establish division, but they shall fall. So the king of the south, Seleucid, shall do battle with the king of the north, right? Robbers of thy people, Seleucid at this time controls Israel. So Seleucid now controls most of, where's the map gone? Controls most of Israel now. From the Seleucid Empire, they're now pushed back now, and they control most of these ports in Israel now. Bang. Let's go, verse 15. It says, so the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities. So he returns with a larger army. That's one more. Antiochus attacks the Ptolemaic province of Syria, which we just read, and Phoenicia, which is on the coast of Israel. And by 199 BC, he seems to have possession of it before the Anatolian, the Anatolian leader Scopas recovers it for Ptolemy. But that recovery proved brief, because around 198 BC, Antiochus defeats Scopas at the Battle of Panium, near the sources of the Jordan, a battle which marks the end of the Ptolemaic rule in Judea. All right? So this is what this is getting into here. It says, but he cometh against him and shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. So the glorious land is what? Come on, people, you must know. What's the land of milk and honey? The glorious land is Israel. So now, Seleucid now has taken control of Israel. All right? So that's the glorious land, Israel. All right? That's what that's talking about. So let's go to the next verse. Verse 17. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, an upright one with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. So the strength of his kingdom, it says, but he shall set his face to enter with strength of his whole kingdom. All right, those are Antiochus's armies. The daughter of women was the first Cleopatra, because everyone had that name, just like everyone had the name Bernice. Everyone had that name, took on the name Cleopatra, like a title. All right. So when it says here, and upright ones with him, it says, thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, which was Cleopatra at the time, with her husband, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him, right? So her husband was Ptolemy Epiphanes, right? So it says, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. Cleopatra sides with her husband, right? Ptolemy Epiphanes against her father, because she's the daughter of, Antiochus? She's a daughter of Antiochus. She's a daughter of Cleopatra. She's a daughter of Antiochus Epiphanes, I believe. She's Antiochus's daughter, Cleopatra. So, oh man, If I say Antiochus, that's who that's talking about. I think the fourth Epiphanes, I believe that's his daughter. Issued, father, mother. These are these children here. I believe that's his daughter. Where are we? His daughter, or is it Antiochus the Great's daughter? It might be Antiochus the Great's daughter. Yeah, it's Antiochus the Great's daughter. I want to get this right. See, that's her there. Cleopatra the First of Syria was a princess of the Seleucid Empire, see that? Queen of the Ptolemaic Egypt by marriage to Ptolemy the Fifth of Egypt, and regent of Egypt during the minority of their son Ptolemy the Sixth from her husband's death 180 BC. So she is the daughter of Antiochus the Third, Antiochus the Great. She's his daughter, Cleopatra, just so you understand, all right? So when it says here, and she shall give him the daughter of women, Antiochus the Great gave Ptolemy his daughter for marriage, right, corrupting her, but she did what? Because he thought that he could use his daughter, you know what they do to get information, what's going on that side. But she stood by her husband, Ptolemy, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. For she stood by her husband, Ptolemy. She stood by her husband. Where is he gone? Cleopatra, Syria. She stood by her husband, which was Ptolemy the Fifth. She didn't side with her father in the disputes between the two kingdoms. So this is what this is talking about, verse 17, all right? Halfway. It says, after this shall he turn his face unto the isles and shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. All right? So this is what we was talking about again when it says, after this he shall turn to his face unto his isles. The isles represents the coastal towns of the Ptolemaic Empire. So when it says here, and he shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. So that prince is Scipio Asiaticus, the leader of the Roman army in Asia Minor. His name is Scipio. Scipio. This is who this prince is talking about. All right, Scipio. Scipio. Yeah, we keep these names, these funny names, if I can spell it right. It's Scipio. What's his name? Asiaticus. I believe that's how it is spelled. Yeah. Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus. That's the prince that it's referring to. All right, it's this general here. All right. So if we go back to Daniel 11, when it says, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. So that's talking about Scipio Asiaticus. He's the leader of the Roman army in Asia Minor. He defeats the larger naval forces brought against him by Antiochus the Great, because that's what happens. This is what he's talking about. He defeats Antiochus the Great's army that came against him. All right, because he had signed an league agreement with the Ptolemaic Empire, the Romans. So you understand. It says, then he shall turn his face towards the fault of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. All right. So on his way home to Syria, Antiochus the Great, he starts a fresh campaign, pillaging temples at Elysimus, where he dies. And that story is in the book of Maccabees. It tells you about Antiochus the Great's death. It's all it's written in. Is it here? Antiochus III is mentioned in the Deuteronomical books of Maccabees, the subject of the Maccabees in the Maccabean revolt against Antiochus' son, Antiochus IV Epiphanes. All right, Antiochus III is first mentioned in 1 Maccabees 1 and 10, when Antiochus IV is introduced as the son of the king of Antiochus. Antiochus I is mentioned later in Maccabees 1 and 8, which describes Judas Maccabee's knowledge of the deeds of the Roman Republic, including an illusion of the defeat. You hear that? Including an illusion to the defeat of Antiochus III by the Romans. Who was that Roman that defeated him? This guy here, Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus, what we just read. All right. So when it says, then he shall turn his face towards the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Why did he turn his face? Because he was defeated by the Romans. The Romans army that defeated him was who? Was Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus. Let's go to the next verse. Verse 20. It says, then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. So Seleucus Philopator IV raises taxes to do what? To pay the Romans their tribute, because the Romans has defeated them now, right? So they've got to pay a tribute to the bad boys, the Romans, right? So that person that raises up the taxes in his estate, the one that stands up in his estate, is Seleucus Philopator IV. Seleucus then gets, as we know, assassinated by Heliodorus. That's in the book of Maccabees as well. The money was taken from the second temple in Jerusalem. That's in the book of Maccabees when it tells you about that as well. I'm not going to go into it, but if you go into the book of Maccabees, I think it's 2 Maccabees chapter 6. It tells you about that. I'm not going to go into it, but let me just... I think it's 2 Maccabees, the 1 Maccabees. Chapter 6. Let's see, I think it's chapter 6. Training the temple. It's in the book of Maccabees. I don't want to try to find it now. But that's what that's talking about anyway. All right. Verse 20. So let's go to the next verse. Verse 21, it says, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peacefully and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. So who is that vile person? That vile person is Antiochus the Great's son. This devil here. Let's go. It's this guy's son here. His name is, where is it? Where's your son gone? Predecessor. It's Antiochus Epiphanes. It's not showing it here. Here you go. Antiochus IV Epiphanes. This is Antiochus the Great's son. So this verse here, when it says, in his estate shall stand up a vile person, that's Antiochus Epiphanes. Just read when you go into Maccabees, it tells you about this guy as well. All right, this is the guy that fought the wars against the Maccabees, right? The Maccabean Wars with Judas and his brother Simon and Johanna and the rest of the 5 Maccabean brothers and their father Matthias. This is the devil here, right? This is that vile person, to whom they shall not give honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peacefully and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. So this is the second son of Antiochus the Great, and he was indeed one of the most morally degraded of men. So if you go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1 verse 10, it speaks about him. He usurped the Syrian throne from Heliodorus and killed the son of Seleucus Philopator IV. That's who that vile person is, all right? And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. So Antiochus Epiphanes conquers Egypt, and he captures, what's his name? The Ptolemaic king at that time. So it says, yea, also the prince of the covenant, right? When it says, goes in with a flood, and with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him. That means his army. The arms of the flood talk about his army, all right? Just so you understand. Shall they be overflown from before him? That's his army. Antiochus is Epiphanes' army when he goes in to conquer Egypt, to conquer the Ptolemies, right? To take more of their land, right? He says, and he shall be broken, right? And yea, also the prince of the covenant, right? So this is what he did when he went in on the Ptolemies, right? The flood is referring to his army that overflows the Ptolemies. Verse 23, it says here, and after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. So Antiochus made Ptolemy the Sixth a puppet, literally, all right? And he was he made him a puppet, and he was a ruler, and he also made a league with the Romans, all right? So it says, after the league made him with him, he shall work deceitfully. He made the king of the Ptolemaic Empire, Ptolemy the Sixth, a puppet. Antiochus Epiphanes did this because now he had control. But he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people, all right? Because he overwhelmed him. He shall enter peacefully even upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done. So now Antiochus Epiphanes is doing something that his father's not done. He's gone in now to take control of Egypt now, nor his father's fathers. So Antiochus the Great hadn't did this. Antiochus the Second hadn't did this. Seleucid the First hadn't did this. What Antiochus Epiphanes has done by going in and invading and taking control of parts of Egypt and having the Egyptian king, the Greek king of Egypt, Ptolemy the Sixth, as his puppet. None of his forefathers had did this. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. So Antiochus Epiphanes attacks the king of the south, Ptolemy VI, in Egypt again, as him taking control. Verse 25, and he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. So when it says, and he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, that's Antiochus Epiphanes that does that. That's this guy here. He stirs up a great army. Let's see if it shows you here. Final years. Hold on. Just want to see. What did he put on? Pay indemnity to Rome. That talks about he's paying, he's due. Where is the embassy? Public. Treaty of Rome. Who's been assassinated? So I'm trying to go into it. But this is what it does. I mean, you can read about all of this if you go into it, but I don't really want to spend too much time showing you that. But this is what this is talking about. But he shall stand, but they shall forecast devices against him. So this is what he does. Antiochus Epiphanes defeats the king of the south, Ptolemy VI, in Egypt. It's a second attack. It's also in the first book of Maccabees, chapter 1. I think around verse 17 and 18, all right? You can read about that as well. Now let's keep it moving. It says, yea, they shall feed of the portion of his meat and shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow. See what it talks about? A flood coming in, overflow. It's talking about an army. It's not talking about water, right? And many shall fall down slain. So the king of the south, Ptolemies, the sixth empire, falls. His empire, and many shall fall down slain. His empire falls to Antiochus Epiphanes. See, past his place. Verse 27. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. So when it says, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, these kings are the Ptolemy brothers, right, who will agree to rule Egypt jointly, right, just so you understand. And they shall speak lies at one table, all right, because they're two speaking lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. As you know, man, joint rulership never lasts, especially between two brothers in the same within the same empire, when both of them are trying to be kings at the same time. Just someone, words get some idiot. Trump equals Daniel's 1190. We just remove this comment from block this user. We always get these wayward people that got nothing better to do, come in the comment board and put some foolishness. So let's go to verse 28. I know we're skipping through this fast, right? Well, not so fast because we've been on 55 minutes now, but you know. So verse 28 says, then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. So that's talking about Antiochus Epiphanes returns back to Syria with his mind set on Israel. You understand? So he's conquered Egypt now, well, parts of Egypt, and he's got the puppet kings in Egypt, the Ptolemies, doing what he says. So now he's on his way back to Egypt. So his mind is now set on where? His mind is now set on the promised land. Everyone's mind is set on our land, isn't it? So his mind is on his way back from conquering the Ptolemaic Empire, and he's got his two puppet kings in there, right? His kings, the Ptolemies, who are ruling under his advice. He's on his way back to the Seleucid Empire. So his mind is now set on the promised land. Because as I said, it's stuck in between the two empires. All right? So that's what that's speaking of. 1 second, family. Good to check out. One second. One second. Just changing up something. Let's do that major. Go to payment. 1 second, family. Just doing something. Just. Oh, 1 second. Slacky, family. Slacky. Ptolemy. I'm just getting something up here on this screen here. 1 second. 43. One minute. Just so where is it? Okay. So let's get this Septuagint here. So it is 11699611. Okay. Sorry about that, Salaki family. Salaki. All right. So, verse 28, as we just went through, we just said, right, that's Antiochus Epiphanes who returns back to Syria. And like I said, he's got his mindset on our land, right? Come on. Verse 29. And at the time appointed, he shall return and come towards the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. So Antiochus Epiphanes, right, carried out one successful invasion when he plundered Egypt, right, which we spoke about, when he took parts of Egypt and had the puppet king in there for a short while under his rulership, right, before the two brothers conspired to rule and take back rulership between themselves against being the puppet king of Antiochus. So when it says at that time appointed he shall return, he's returning from where? From plundering Egypt. But on his return back to Egypt, when it says there, and he comes towards the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. Why? Because on his return back to Egypt, he looks to go back there again. So he says it, and he comes towards the south. And at the time appointed, he shall return and come towards the south. So he's going back to Egypt now, right? After he had those successful campaigns in Egypt before from plundering it. So now he's going back to Egypt to plunder Egypt again. All right, just so you understand. That's why it says, and he comes towards the south. The south is where? Let me just show you again. That's the north. When you come into the south, that's here. So now he's coming back towards Egypt. All right, after he returned back home, now he wants to come back to Egypt again because he's already plundered it once. He wants to go and do it again because it was easy pickings for him the first time, basically, right? Because he came with a great army. So when it says here, at the time appointed, he shall return. He's returning back to Egypt and come towards the south. That's where he's heading. But it shall not be as the former or as the latter, which means it's not going to be as easy as he tried to do it the first time when he was able to plunder Egypt the first time and set up a puppet king in there the first time. It's not going to be easy the second time. Why is that? Because he is repelled by the Romans, who told him if he attacks Egypt, it's an act of war. Because now the Egyptians have got not the Egyptians, the Ptolemies that control Egypt have got an allegiance with the Romans now. So they're paying the Romans tributary, and they've got an allegiance with the Romans. So this is why it's not going to be as easy as the former, what he did before. So it says here, for the ships of Chittim shall come against him. The ships of Chittim are the Romans. These are the Romans who come up against Antiochus Epiphanes. So if I was to type in, I know. If I was to type in the ships, let me see if it comes up here, of Chittim. Let's see if it comes up here, if it shows you. Let's see if it shows you here. It's not showing me here. But that's who they are, the ships of Chittim. Because if we were to go, Chittim, that's what you would say, Chittim, really. If we say Chittim, that's how it's spelled. So let's see if it shows me on this map here. Right, because that's Cyprus, right? So the ships of Chittim, so I want you to see this. These are the Romans ships, because the Romans control Cyprus, right? The ships of Chittim come up against him because he's coming from here down to the south into Egypt, Antiochus, to plunder it again. The ships of Chittim, they leave the port of Chittim, Cyprus, and they come down to Egypt. Those are the Romans, because the Romans control Cyprus, all right? And the Romans have an allegiance now with the Ptolemies in Egypt. So the ships of Chittim come from here. The Romans in their ships come from here down to Egypt to defeat Antiochus, who thinks coming into Egypt again, into the Ptolemaic Empire, to plunder it again would be easy pickings. So the prophecy says, for the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Those are the Romans. That's what happened. All right. Therefore, he shall be grieved. Antiochus is grieved because this time these are serious warriors now that come up against him, right? And return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them for they forsake the holy covenant. So the ships of Chittim are the Romans. So Antiochus now, he has indignation against the holy covenant, right? Against Israel because of his defeat. Because of the defeat against the Romans have come against him. So now when it says here, therefore he shall be grieved, right? Because he loses that battle. Lose enough men get dead from Antiochus' army, and he is grieved, he's fuming, and he returns. So he's grieved and he's returning. Where is he returning? Let's get this up again. So he's aggrieved, so he returns back to the Seleucid Empire, all right? So it's, on his return, he has to go through where? He has to go through Israel, right? Remember, go to the map again, yeah? Canaan, this is Israel. He has to go through Israel on his return back to the Seleucid Empire. So he's grieved, he's pissed. And he has what? He has indignation against the Holy Covenant. He takes it out on the children of Israel. He's got indignation, anger against the children of Israel. All right? So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. All right? So now he's coming up against Israel now, Antiochus. So, and he does that during his return. Remember, we're talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, and all of this is in the book of Maccabees as well. It says, "An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice." Right? Remember we spoke about this the other day? "And they shall place the abomination that make us desolate." All right? So what did he do? He sacrificed the pig on the altar, the dirty Antiochus, right? That was in, let me just quickly bring it up, because I know we spoke about this the other day. Just second Maccabees. Sorry, First Maccabees. First Maccabees, chapter 2. Hold on, chapter 1. That's chapter 1, I think I want. Where did I want? There it is. At the altars, groves, idols, sacrifice. Where you go. We're going to bring it up. It's all apart. It's all apart. So now, this is talking about what Antiochus Epiphanes did on his way back from losing his battle against the Romans, the ships that came from Chittim, the Romans that defeated him when he tried to come up against the Ptolemaic Empire again, because it was easy pickings the first time. He was going there again. So on his way back, he's aggrieved, he's angry. Now he's going to take out his rage on the Israelites, on Israel. So this is what they do. "And his arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that make us desolate." So that prophecy is being fulfilled as well. And this is when it happened. So everything in the book of Daniel was prophecies to come to pass. And they all happened during the times of Antiochus and the Ptolemaic Empire. Verse 1. So this is when they did the abomination that made it desolate. Let's go straight to the point. "And they shall pollute the sanctuary. They should follow God." Verse. Let's get to the verse. See it here? Verse 41. "Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid the burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and the festivals and the days, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people." So you see what it says here? "An arm shall stand upon his part, and they shall pollute." What are they going to pollute? "The sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that make us desolate." So this is what they did. "And they shall what? And they shall pollute." First Maccabees 1:4, "And they shall and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people, and this is the abomination that made it desolate." They set up altars and groves and chapels of idols and sacrificed swine's flesh and unclean beasts. So that's what made it desolate, the abomination. They were sacrificing swine's flesh, right? So that prophecy was fulfilled, what Daniel spoke about here, the daily sacrifice, take away the daily sacrifice and the abomination that makes it desolate. That's what that's talking about. Verse 32. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall be corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their power shall be strong and do exploits. So who's that talking about? When it says as such to do wickedly against the covenant shall be corrupt by flatteries, those were the wicked Israelites that we just read about, that agreed with what we just read here in, I'll just quickly show you. It actually says the Israelites that sat down with him. Hold on. Here it is. And yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. So that's what we got here. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. Those are those Israelites we just read about there. But the people that do know their power, the Maccabees, Matthias and his sons, that's who's that? That's talking about Matthias, his son John. Not John, yeah. His son, he had 5 sons. Joanna, called Cadius, Simon, called Thassius, Judas, who was given the name Maccabees. The name Maccabees means the hammer, right? Because he was the most military and guerrilla warfare one of them all. Eleazar was the other son, and the other son was, it was Jonathan, who also was named Appius. So those were Matthias's 5 sons. So when it says, but the people that do know their God, that's Matthias and his 5 sons, the Maccabees, shall be strong and do exploits. Right? Next verse. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by the spoils many days. So that's further prophecy of the captivity and the subjection under King Antiochus Epiphanes, right? The captivity and the subjection that our people went under, right? When it says, and they that understand, it says, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many, right? Yet they shall fall by the sword and by the flame, by captivity and spoil, because Matthias and his sons now, they are the ones that start the rebellion against Antiochus. So a long period foretold in which the Israelites would fall by the sword, by the flame, by captivity, and by the spoil, which was happening under these devils here, all right? These Greeks. Verse 34, it says, now when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries. So when it says here, when it says, but the people then that know their God shall be strong and do exploits, it's talking about that. It says, you know, you got those blasphemy acts that Antiochus stirred up the faithful Jews to revolt to do, but you had Matthias and his sons that led against them. And that goes back to once I said, it says, now when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help, Matthias and his sons. That goes back to them coming up against Antiochus and fighting the guerrilla warfare. But it says, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries, right? As you saw, many Israelites shall cleave to Antiochus and do what he does through what they were promised, through the flatteries that he give to them. Verse 35 it says, and some of them of understanding shall fall to try them and to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. All right. So that's talking about the Israelites again. All right. Verse 36, and the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, right? Against Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. It's all prophecy. So what Antiochus Epiphanes accomplished against the Israelites when he had them under this oppression had to be fulfilled. That's why it says here, and he shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. because these prophecies had to be fulfilled. So Antiochus the third, right? What's his name again? So Antiochus Epiphanes, I'm saying, all right? He was the one that accomplished these things against the children of Israel, all right? So it says that the king shall do according to his will, Antiochus shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, all right? Because he thought he was a god. This is the guy that introduced Serapis. That's what white Jesus Christ goes back to, Serapis, the worshipping of, he made himself a god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. So we had to go through what we had to do, because it was prophesied in the book of Daniel, what we're reading here, that these things were going to happen to us during the time of the Ptolemy and the Seleucid Empire. Verse 37, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, right? Nor the desire of women, nor regard any God. For he shall what? He shall magnify himself above all. He creates himself, he makes himself a God. Antiochus Epiphanes was the second son and successor of Antiochus III the Great, right? So this is what he did. He made himself a God. That's why it says, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, right? He made himself. I think Serapis was based on Antiochus Epiphanes, and he wanted everyone to worship Serapis, worship him as a god. He even lost respect for his forefathers, for Antiochus the Great and Antiochus the Second and Seleucid the First. That's Esau, boy. There's no length of madness that this man won't go to. Verse 38. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. Right? So Antiochus worshipped, they called him to, is it Epiphanes, the mad one? I think that's what his name means, Epiphanes, the mad one. But so these guys are, but in his estate shall he honor the God of forces, and a God of whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. He's created his own God to worship, right? Verse 39, thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. So this is still Antiochus Epiphanes that's doing all of this, right? That this prophecy is still speaking on. Verse 40, and at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, right? And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. So when it says there, at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, right? And the king of the north shall come against him. So the Seleucids, like the Ptolemies before them, held a mile, what they call a Syrian over Judea, like a who was ruling over Judea. They respected, they at first they respected the Israelite culture, right? But their policies dramatically were reversed, as we know, as we read under Antiochus IV Epiphanes, resulting in the persecution and revolt against his rule, which we know as the Maccabean revolt. All right. So this is the king of the south shall push against him, the king of the north, Antiochus, pushing against the king of, the Ptolemies, pushing now, coming up against the king of the north, like a whirlwind with chariots. Because remember, now the Ptolemies are being kind of backed by the Romans in a sense, right? They're in allegiance with the Romans. So now they're more of a power now than the Seleucid Empire now, the Ptolemies now. It says, he shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, and these shall escape out of his land, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. All right. So when it says he shall enter also into the glorious land, Antiochus decides to side with the Hellenized Jews in order to consolidate his empire. That's how he gets into Israel, because he gets all those Hellenized Jews to join forces with him, to be part of his thing. All right. So he consolidates his empire to strengthen his hold over that region, right? Because the Ptolemies now are pushing from the south coming up. So he outlaws, as we know, he outlaws all of our traditions that we keep, all of our laws, commonwealths and that. We read about that in Second Maccabees, First Maccabees and Second Maccabees. It says there was a an anthem of the Jews that refused, which were the Maccabees. So Antiochus sent an army to enforce his decree. That goes back to the Maccabean revolt. The city of Jerusalem gets destroyed because of the resistance, but many are slaughtered. And Antiochus established a military Greek citadel called Acra in Judea. All right? And that all goes back to the war. So he shall enter also into the glorious land. The glorious land is Israel. And many countries shall be overthrown. So all the countries, surrounding countries around Israel were overthrown as well. But these shall escape out of his hand. Even Edom. Edomites are the same as those Greeks that came against Israel. But these were able to escape, right? That's right down south of Israel, to the south of Israel, that is Edom. And Moab, to the east of Israel, and the chief children of Ammon. They were able to escape Antiochus's clutches, right? It says, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. So when it says he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, around 168 BC, Antiochus led a second attack. Around 170 BC, he led a second attack on Egypt. And he also sent a fleet to capture Cyprus, right? but when he reached Alexandria, his path was blocked by a single elderly Roman ambassador named Gaius Populus Lianus, who delivered a message from the Roman Senate directing Antiochus to withdraw his armies from Egypt and Cyprus or consider himself in a state of war with the Roman Republic. So when it says that he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape, this is the Roman guy that did it. Let's get his name up. His name is Gaius. This is the Populus. Gaius Populus Lianus. There you go, Gaius Populus Lianus. It's in there. Yeah. It's it. Twice served as one of the two councils of the Roman Republic in 172 and 158 BC. He was sent as an envoy to prevent. Come on, man. Why this? Now close. Okay. He was sent as an envoy to prevent a war. You see that? Between Antiochus IV Epiphanes of the Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemaic Egypt. I told you, on being confronted with the Roman demands that he abort his attack on Alexandria, Antiochus played for time. Populus Lianus is supposed to have drawn a circle around the king in the sand with his cane and ordered him not to move out of it until a firm answer had been given. The Syrians withdraw according to Libby. Now there's a term they call that. This is the man that, that's right, this is the man that drew a circle in the sand around the king. All right. I think this is where they get the term crossing the red line or the sand in the line or something like that. There's a term that comes from this that's popular today, that they use today when they say if they cross that line, or if they cross the red line, or if you cross the circle. It's a term that they use today when countries are saying, right, if you do certain things, if you cross that line, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. If you cross that line, I'm going to go to war. This is where it comes from. This is the root of that term that they use today. It comes from this guy here, Gaius Populus Lianus. He was the one. So this is what this is talking about here. When it says, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. Right? So that's Antiochus coming down back onto them. And this is the guy that stops the war. This is the guy that says to them, look, where you're going to invade, right? He was sent as an envoy to prevent the war between where? Antiochus IV Epiphanes of the Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemaic Egypt. This is the guy that they sent. And this is where they get the term from. Populus Lianus is supposed to have drawn a circle around the king in the sand with his cane and ordered him not to move out of it until a firm answer had been given him. Then the Syrians withdrawn. So this is what verse 11 is talking about when Antiochus came back on Egypt again for another war and to try to take Cyprus as well. All right, the Romans that was the Roman Senate that was down there, the envoy, the ambassador that said, look, you do this, mate. Now you're coming up against basically the fourth beast of the book of Daniel, chapter 7, the Roman army. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, over all the precious things of Egypt and the Libyans, and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps, right? So that's what he had power over, Antiochus. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him, right? Therefore he shall go forth with a great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. So Antiochus Epiphanes recognizes the potential danger in the east, but was unwilling to give control of Judea. All right, this is what this is talking about. When it says, "But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him." All right. Therefore he shall go forth with a great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. So it goes back to what we read here when it says here, he had to give a firm answer to this guy here, Gaius Populus Lianus. Then it says the Syrians withdrew, going back. All right. 4 months. So on his way back now, he hears tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with a great fury. This is what really convinces him to go back as well, to destroy and to utterly make a way of many. Was the news that he was getting what was going on in Israel, or what was going on in Syria, which is north to Israel. So he sent a commander named Lysias to deal with the Maccabees, and those tidings was the wars that was happening against the Maccabeans, right? The Maccabean revolt. Those were the tidings that was going on in Judea, right? So he sent his commander Lysias to deal with the Maccabeans, while the king himself led the main Seleucid army against the Parthians, because the Parthians now were coming in. I'm not going to bring it up on the map, but the Parthians were based up here. So they were coming from the north. The Parthians, I want to show it on the map here. They're showing their territory. Here they are. See it here? Parthia. These guys were now coming in on his territory. All right. So you had the Parthians coming in. So this was the news that he was getting. The revolt that was going on with the Maccabeans against the Seleucid army in Judea, Jerusalem. And then he had the Parthians coming in as well, right? From the east there. So when it says, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him, that's what he heard. He had the Parthians, he had the war that was going on with the Maccabees in Judea. And then he heard that the Parthians were coming in on him from the east as well, all right? And from the north, sorry, and shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with a great army to destroy and utterly to make their way. So what does he do? The king himself led the main Seleucid army against the Parthians. Antiochus had initial success in the eastern campaign, including the reoccupation of Armenia, but he died suddenly of disease in 164 BC. So when it says, and utterly to make away many, right? That was and utterly to make away many. See, that was his end, mate. Then it says here, verse 45, it says, there's the last verse, yeah. It says, and he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountains, yet he shall come to his end, he's going to die, and none shall help him. So according to the scrolls of Antiochus, when Antiochus heard that his army had been defeated in Judea, which they were, the Maccabees defeated them, right? He boarded a ship and fled to coastal cities. But that's when I think it's in the second book of Maccabees, it talks about the Lord Almighty. He dies of that bowel cancer. So when it says, and he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas. He's on his way back. On his ships that he's left in. So he's boarded a ship and he's fled the coastal cities. On his way back he's on his way back to the Seleucid Empire via ship. And then it says, he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountains. All right. Yet he shall come to his end and none shall help him. So, and then he eventually dies. And that's in 2 Maccabees. I'll quickly show you it. But we're going to finish here anyway. I know it's been a long one, but I said I promised to do this, didn't I? 2 Maccabees. This is where he dies. This is his end. 2 Maccabees. Oh, country Persia, he called up Solus, he made him flee. This is him departing and going back. Is it in here? Okay, 1 second. Chapter 10. That's his death. 2 Maccabees, where he dies. But anyway, he eventually dies. It's in the book of Maccabees. I don't want to spend too long trying to find it. Second Maccabees 9. Let me just see. Sabbath. Cheers. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. But anyway, he finally dies and so forth. So, the bottom line is, Daniel's chapter 11 has been fulfilled. The whole chapter of Daniel's chapter 11 from verse 1 to verse 45 has all been fulfilled. And it all to do with the Syrian Wars between the Seleucid kingdom and the Ptolemaic Egypt. It's basically all about those wars there that took place between these two nations, these two rulers back then, their kings, their daughters, their sons, their grandsons, so forth and so on. So, I know it was a bit long, but it's very hard to do a short thing of Daniel chapter 11. So I pray you are edified by today's edification. The book of Daniel chapter 11, the Syrian Wars, that was fought between the Hellenistic states, the Seleucid kingdom, and the Ptolemaic Egypt. It's not talking about today. It's not talking about America and Russia. It's not talking about Russia and Israel. It's not talking about Iran and Israel. It's not talking about anything that's going to take place in our last days. Daniel's chapter 11 has been fully fulfilled. And I hope you understood by every single prophecy that Daniel prophesied, I was able to show you in the scriptures and in the secular history where all of these things took place. All right? And I know for a fact, not a single preacher or pastor of those Christian churches can break down Daniel's chapter 11. Right? I don't think they can break down anything in the book of Daniel's, more or less. So, I pray you are edified by today's edification. As I say, I'll give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash, double honors to the apostles of great millstones who are leading this word in truth and spirit and sincerity, and salutations to the righteous brothers and sisters out there that are able to receive this word in the name of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jesus Christ. Shalom, 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 family. All praises. All praises. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed today's edification. Shalom.